Today, we are plunging right into a world defined by this incredible heat, existential detachment, and, well, a seemingly accidental act of violence.
That's right. We've got these detailed excerpts from Albert Camus' landmark novel, The Stranger.
This is really an investigation into a single man's mind, the famous, or maybe infamous, Meursault.
Right. And for you listening, our mission is pretty simple, but I think quite profound. We're tracking a character whose emotional life seems strangely inert, almost disconnected from reality. It all starts with the telegram about his mother's death.
So what we need to do is analyze his steady, almost mechanical descent into a capital crime.
And crucially, understand how the legal system ultimately chooses to prosecute his character, his indifference, rather than just the facts of the murder. We're only using the evidence that Camus gives us to explain this narrative of the absurd.
Okay, let's jump right in, because that opening sequence, what we're calling the calculus of indifference, it just immediately sets the tone.
Oh, absolutely.
Meursault travels 50 miles to Marengo for his mother's vigil, and the details are, frankly, shocking. He starts by saying he can't be sure if she died today or maybe yesterday.
It's not just a lack of feeling, it's a failure to even register these essential temporal facts. That's the first hint that Meursault is operating in just a different reality.
His focus is entirely on sensation.
Exactly. He declines the offer to see the body, which is, this expected right of grieving. But instead, he's just registering the uncomfortable facts, the heat, the glare of the lights.
The physical need for a stimulant.
Yeah.
And the small details, they're so telling. He accepts the doorkeeper's café au lait and then smokes cigarettes with him during the vigil.
I mean, for a conventional person, those acts would be seen as a profound disrespect. But for Meursault, they're not symbolic. They're just solutions to physical needs, thirst, fatigue, the need for nicotine. And when the old people gather, he notes their silence is, quote, telling on his nerves. He even has this absurd impression that they had come to sit in judgment on me.
So he understands the social expectation.
He gets it, but he feels no personal responsibility to actually adhere to it. He is physically present at his mother's death, but emotionally, morally, he's just charting sensory inputs, the hard floor, the taste of the coffee.
And the second that funeral is over, the pivot to pleasure is so instantaneous, it's almost jarring. He gets on the bus back to Algiers and notes the morning breeze has a pleasant salty tang. There's no transition period, no reflection.
And that sharp transition is the whole key to understanding him. He immediately seeks out Marie Cardona, physical activity.
Right. Saturday is defined by sensation. Swimming, feeling the pleasantly warm air, and then right after that, going to see a comedy film with Fernando.
The contrast there between the gravity of a funeral and the lightness of a comedy, it's just impossible to reconcile using any kind of conventional morality.
This is where that social disconnect really crystallizes, I think. He mentions the exchange where Marie notices his black tie, and he just explains, my mother died yesterday.
And she recoils, she shrinks away. But Meursault, he suppresses the impulse to excuse himself. He realizes it would sound foolish.
He knows what he's supposed to do.
He recognizes the societal script. He's supposed to apologize for not being sufficiently miserable. But his truth is, he isn't miserable. So to apologize would be a lie, and he seems incapable of manufacturing emotion. This is the core of his absurdist stance.
And the Sunday that follows just confirms this deep-seated apathy. He says he feels at loose ends. He's cooking eggs, eating them from the pan.
No bread.
No bread. And he just observes life around him, takes it all in, and then concludes with this stunning clarity. Really, nothing in my life had changed.
Nothing has changed because for him, his mother's life and death didn't alter his primary relationship with the world, which is purely physical. It's all about sensation. This indifference is the bedrock.
So, okay, moving past his indifference to grief, how does he get dragged toward disaster by these very strange neighbors? We meet Salamano and Raymond.
Salamano is fascinating. He's this old man with his mangy spaniel, inseparable for 8 years, yet they just seem to detest each other.
The constant abuse.
But then the dog goes missing, and the old man is just reduced to desperate grief. It's this conventional, if very misplaced, human attachment, cruelty masking this deep, dependent love.
And then you have Raymond Sentes, who's the total opposite. He's the aggressive warehouseman. I think we know what that implies. And he is just focused on this vengeful, petty pride because his mistress let him down.
And Meursault's involvement with him, it isn't driven by loyalty or malice. It's just a a pure lack of opposition. He has dinner with Raymond, agrees to be his pal, and then, and this is crucial, he writes the stinker letter to lure the mistress back.
His rationale is terrifyingly simple. He had no reason not to satisfy him.
That's it.
But that's the moment his passive apathy becomes active complicity. Why would someone so fundamentally passive choose to write a letter that guarantees violence for a man he barely knows?
Because for Meursault, the act of writing that letter has the same moral weight as eating his eggs from the pan. There is no moral framework attached. If Raymond wants it and it costs him nothing, why not?
And that passive compliance is what leads directly to the escalation.
Right. Raymond beats the girl, the police show up, and Meursault just agrees to be his witness. He lies, saying the girl had been false to Raymond. He shows, zero regard for the consequences.
And at the same time, his personal life choices just reinforce this detachment. His employer offers him a huge promotion, a job in Paris.
A life-changing opportunity.
And his reply is that he's prepared to go. But one life was as good as another. Marie asks him to marry her. He says he doesn't mind, but admits, I suppose I didn't love her.
He doesn't reject them. He just treats these huge life milestones as completely interchangeable. Marriage, career, where you live to him, all paths lead to the same end, death. So the choice is meaningless.
But as this all spirals, the physical consequences start to appear. We get this ominous presence of the Arabs, including the mistress's brother, following Raymond.
And Meursault observes them staring silently in the special way these people have, as if we were blocks of stone or dead trees.
Which is almost a perfect mirror of how he sees the world, now reflected back at him.
It is the world judging him, yeah, even before the court does. And this brings us to the beach, the absolute climax where sensation just completely overcomes rationality.
The trip to Massine's beach bungalow. It's hot. After Raymond gets cut in that first fight, Meursault goes back to the beach alone. And the sun isn't just hot anymore. It's an aggressive, malignant thing. He feels the light thudding in my head.
He's paralyzed by the physical environment. The decision to stay or move, he says, came to much the same. This paralysis by sensation is key. He describes the sun pressing itself on me, trying to check my progress. His only desire is purely physical, the longing for the cool silence of the stream. He sees the Arab draws his knife, but the real violence here is coming from the atmosphere itself.
Okay, so here's the precise physical catalyst. How does that sensory overload translate into murder? The text says the sun glares off the steel of the knife, and the light felt as if a long, thin blade transfixed my forehead.
Sweat is gathering in his eyebrows. It's blinding him. He's under a veil of brine and tears. He's helpless.
His world dissolves into just pure noise and light.
Exactly. He hears the symbols of the sun clashing on my skull and the sky itself cracked in two. He fires the revolver, and that first shot, he notes, shattered the balance of the day, the spacious calm of this beach on which I had been happy. He knows he has caused this profound rupture.
But he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop at one shot, which, you could argue was self-defense in a moment of panic. He fires 4 more shots into the inert body,
calling each one a loud, fateful rap on the door of my undoing.
Why those 4 extra shots?
Those 4 shots are everything. They are what condemn him in the eyes of the law. The first shot might have been an accident, driven by the heat, the glare. But the next 4, they're ceremonial, they're deliberate, gratuitous. They transform the crime from a physical breakdown into what the court sees as a premeditated act.
And that distinction between sensory accident and moral premeditation, that brings us straight to the trial in part 2, which very quickly becomes about putting his life on trial, not just his actions.
Right. The lawyer's first focus isn't on forensics or the fight, but on Meursault's great callousness at the funeral. The system is desperate to impose a rational, moral motive on an irrational act.
And when the lawyer tries to prep him, asking about his grief, Meursault gives his honest answer. His feelings are often influenced by his physical condition, like being fagged out.
And the lawyer immediately tells him, you cannot say that. He recognizes it's fatal to his defense.
Then he faces the examining magistrate, who represents this deep need for moral order. The magistrate asks us if he believes in God, waving the silver crucifix around. Meursault's simple reply, no, just seals his spiritual fate.
The magistrate calls him Mr. Antichrist, says his soul is case-hardened, and when he's pushed on whether he regrets the crime, Meursault says he only feels vexation. He can't find a better word for it.
He literally cannot access the required emotion of remorse.
No, which the court demands as proof of his humanity. He fails the test of regret. And this failure to produce an acceptable emotion is what the prosecution weaponizes.
The trial becomes an indictment of indifference.
Absolutely. We see this parade of moral witnesses, the warden, the doorkeeper, they confirm the smoking, the coffee, the lack of tears. Marie's testimony that their liaison started the day after the funeral, followed by the Fernando film, it doesn't prove murder.
No, but it proves moral depravity. It leads to silence and tears in the courtroom. They aren't judging the 5 shots, they're judging the coffee and the comedy.
And then you get the prosecutor's aha moment, this piece of pure rhetoric where he links Meursault's lack of grief directly to the murder. He argues Meursault is morally guilty of his mother's death, that he set a precedent and authorized the crime of parricide that was coming up next on the docket.
He makes Meursault's soul the scapegoat for all of society's breakdown.
Exactly. He argues that a man who doesn't mourn his mother is a threat to the moral foundation of France itself. His character is deemed more dangerous than his crime.
And Meursault's feeble attempt to defend himself just highlights this chasm between his reality and theirs. When he's asked his motive, he tries to explain it was because of the sun.
Which causes people to titter. His truth, that he was overwhelmed by sensation, is just meaningless and absurd to a court that is obsessed with motive, morality, and God.
Even his own lawyer uses I when arguing the defense, literally excluding Meursault from his own case.
He's become an alien figure, so the verdict is swift. Decapitation in the name of the French people.
So once he's in the death row cell, Meursault's focus shifts from all that external chaos to a kind of internal order. He becomes obsessed with trying to circumvent the machine, realizing the flaw in the system is that the condemned man has no chance at all.
And he finds these very specific ways to kill time. He spends hours listing every single object in his old bedroom. He reads this tiny newspaper scrap about a Czech murder 1,000 times over, concluding the victim was asking for trouble. He's still detached.
He's still trying to impose order on randomness. He even prepares mentally for the guillotine itself, noting its efficiency, how it's all on the same level.
Right. He recognizes the system is designed to force the condemned man to mentally collaborate in his own end. But the defining moment, the philosophical turning point of the entire novel, comes with the final confrontation with the prison chaplain.
The chaplain insists he must repent, look for the divine face on the stone walls, find hope.
But Meursault has no patience left for lies. He denies having sin, only a criminal offense. He's just uninterested in something that doesn't interest him.
And this leads to that explosion. The one furious physical rush of feeling that's been absent for the whole narrative.
He screams at the chaplain, grabs his cassock, accuses him of living like a corpse. He shouts that none of his certainties was worth one strand of a woman's hair.
This outburst shatters his passivity forever. It forces his real understanding of the world out into the open.
It does. He pours out this realization that one and the same fate, death, is bound to choose everyone. The idea that every man alive was privileged simply because they were alive, but they were all equally destined for the same end.
So a mother's love, the death of others.
He says they had no least importance in the face of that cosmic inevitability. His previous indifference is now forged into this defiant, active certainty.
And after this moment of, aggressive certainty, he achieves peace. He feels calm, washed me clean, emptied me of hope. He lays his heart open to the benign indifference of the universe.
And feels that it's brotherly. He realizes he had been happy and that I was happy still.
Benign indifference. That's the philosophical payoff, isn't it?
It's everything. The universe doesn't care about his moral judgments, his loves, his crimes. And since the universe is neutral, Meursault's life, his unique way of experiencing it, is just as valid as the social conventions that condemned him. He finds freedom and happiness in acknowledging that nothing matters, which means everything he chose was authentic.
So we've moved from a man who was paralyzed by heat and sensation to one who is fiercely certain of his own unique truth, forged only in the face of the guillotine. It's a really powerful transformation.
It is. He finds freedom not in repentance, but in accepting the world's radical meaninglessness, which, and this brings us to the most provocative final thought in the text. His last hope was to be greeted with howls of execration.
Right. Why? Why would finding peace lead to this profound desire to be actively hated by a huge crowd on the day of his execution?
That is definitely something to meditate on. Does he need the world's rejection to confirm his own final radical authenticity?
Well, thank you for sharing these sources and engaging in this really difficult dive into character and fate. It makes you consider what you value most about your own life's certainties, because, as Meursault learned, those are the first things the world will judge you on.